First, we're going to go ahead and do a label, and a label is a way that I segregate the different portions of my vMix UTC layout. And we'll just call this one graphics, and the drop-down menu will allow you to change the color, and you can drag it and make it as whatever size you like, and you can move it to wherever you'd like. Now we're going to create the button, and the button is probably the most used widget with vMix UTC. It allows me to do a lot of different things. It allows me to operate my overlays for one. And we're going to title this one Small Bug. And we're going to go ahead and tick these boxes here next to Execute and Reset. And then we're going to, in the link box, then we're going to give it a name. We're going to call this one Show Bug. And in the Reset one, we're going to tick it. And we're going to call this one Hide Bug. And this will be very important in our next episode when we do the automation process. And then we can click it as state dependent, and then whenever we activate it, we'll have a little light that'll come on to show us that it is indeed showing in our production. Any shortcut that's in vMix is also in vMix UTC, and you just got to scan through the list for what you want. The one we're looking for is Overview Input X, and X refers to your input. And then you select the input you want, and then the overlay channel 1, 2, 3, or 4. In this case, it's overlay channel 3. And this is when we're going to dive into NDI Monitor. And the reason I'm doing this now is it allows you to see what we're doing in the main vMix production. We'll just entitle this NDI Monitor, and we're going to have to attach a file to it where it says file path to show it where this file is. It's a DLL file. And if you remember, when we originally downloaded vMix UTC from the forum website, I'll just kind of refresh your memory here. And then we clicked on Universal Title Controller. And you can see that there's a couple files there. NDI Monitor Data Provider for UTC. The arrow indicates where those are at. You want to download the older one of that. That seems to be a little bit more stable, and that's the one that I use. You'll need to click on the file folder there as it's indicated, and then direct vMix UTC to the DLL file you just downloaded for NDI Monitor. In the NDI Monitor button that we just created, we'll go and click the drop-down menu. Any NDI outputs will be reflected there, and we're going to choose output 1, which is the program output that's in our main vMix production. And it's showing you what's in program right now. The small bug is actually in the lower right-hand corner, and that's in program. So I'm going to click over to the other computer and just get rid of that. Just shut that overlay off. And then now when we click the button we just made, that overlay is going to come in. So how do we get rid of the overlay? Well, we could actually make another button, and that's what we're going to do. And it's just going to clear the entire overlay channel and not just that input. So we're creating another button. We're going to make it state dependent. Then under command, we're going to go and look for the overlay commands again. Instead of this one, overlay input X in, this is going to be overlay input X out. And we don't have to choose a specific input. We're just going to clear that whole overlay channel, and we know that that small bug is on channel 3, so we're just going to go ahead and get rid of channel 3. We'll resize the button we just made, and when we click on it, the small bug does go away. Go up to the top, click the show bug, and it shows back up. First, we're going to go up to our widget menu, and we're going to select list. And then we're going to go to where it says title mapping, and we're going to bring in the input that we want to map this to. And the input we're looking for is Sunshine Skew. So we're going to click on that. And there's only one place in this title where we can put information, and that's under headline. So we'll also select that. And then we'll position it where we want it. And the next thing I'm going to do, you've seen me do before, I bring in the NDI monitor. So we've done that, and we've selected the main output from our vMix production. And now we're going to go ahead and create a button, and this button is going to display the overlay that we're going to put this information in. And we will entitle this button Show Lower Third. And we're going to go ahead and go to the scripting, and we're going to need to go to some of the overlay functions, and we're going to use the overlay input X. And the good thing about this particular function is when we press on the button that we create one time, it's going to activate it, and when we press on the button that we've created a second time, it's going to take it away. So it's kind of a toggle button, and in this situation it'll work really well for us. So let's again find our input that we want. We're going to put it in our third overlay channel, and we're going to position the button where we want it. And when we click on it, it's going to bring in that lower third, and that is the information that we want to be able to change there where it says headline. So we're going to go up to the list button that we created, and we're going to populate it manually. And let's see, we're just going to go ahead and title this Announcer Tom Smith, and we'll click OK, and then we'll select it from the drop-down menu, and let's go ahead and activate it and show it. And that brings in our announcer, Tom Smith. But we can go ahead and add to it on the fly, and that's what we're going to do next. We'll go up and select it, and we'll click that plus button a few times, 1, 2, 3, and let's add a couple more pieces of information. Referee, let's see, Jason Abbott, he's one of our referees that we use quite a bit, or that we see quite a bit, so we'll put him there. Ring announcer Allie, she did a stellar job at the last production we did, so we'll go ahead and put her in here, and we'll click OK, and that's how we populate that list button manually. So let's go ahead and hit the drop down menu again. We'll go ahead and hit the overlay button. That brings in our referee Jason Abbott. Click it again, and we'll be able to get rid of it. And then drop down menu again, and this will display ring announcer Allie. But you don't have to populate it manually. You can also bring in a list that you've already created, and that's what we're going to do next. But before we do that, let's go ahead and save this small list that we just created. And we click the button that said Save List, and I'll show you this a little more clearly in just a moment. And we're going to entitle this Talent 12 for 2021. And we'll save that, and that way we can come back and use it in the future. And these are the two buttons I was referring to. One says Save List, and the other says Load List. And so what we're going to do is we're going to load a list that we created before, and you see how it automatically populates. And then you go to the drop-down menu, and we have a whole new list of information there. We're going to show the overlay, go back to the drop-down list, choose another name, and then another name, and then another name, and so forth. And that's a real easy way to bring in a lot of information that you want to use in a particular lower third. And here we are in our vMix UTC production you've seen before. This is our football production. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up and we're going to hit the score widget. And the score widget is actually pre-populated with some different sports. It has basketball, rugby, American football, and custom. With custom, you can add the numbers that you need yourself. But we're going to choose American football. And we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that. That was just for demonstration purposes. And we're going to go up to the one that we're using in our layout. This one says visitors. And you're going to see that we have that tick box ticked under +6. And we have a link that says add 6V. And we're going to be using that later on with a little bit of automation. And then at the bottom, you saw the different inputs it was mapped to. This is home. Very similar. We have the tick box again for +6, but this time it's add 6H, which is going to be add 6 to home. And then again, that's what the title is mapped to. Now what we're going to do is we're going to bring the graphic into preview. We're going to right click on it and we're going to go to the title editor. You've seen me do this before in previous videos. I'm going to show you the particular components within that graphic that we've mapped to. So we're going to show you quarter, home score, and visitor. Visitor score is 22. You can see that in the graphic is 22 on the visitor side. The quarter is right in the middle there in yellow. It says first. You can see that. And then the home score is the 16 on the right hand side. So we're going to set everything back to 0 and we're going to see how these buttons work. We push on 6, we add one more for 7 for the visiting team, and then for home we push on 6, add one more for a total of 7. We're going to give them 6 more for a total of 13. And quarter is actually just operated through a list widget. We have first, second, third, fourth quarter, as well as halftime and overtime and final.
Now, just like with one of our previous episodes, if you're doing any type of sporting event, you need some way to keep score. Well, you also need a way to keep the time. Let's go ahead and bring in a timer that I made just to demonstrate today's episode. So I'm going to go ahead and push the start button, and it's going to count down from 10. And I added just a little bit of automation on the end just to spice things up a bit. After it counts down to 0, then it pops in game over. And then after 5 seconds, it goes back and it brings the clock up again. So how do we do this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to bring up today's vMix UTC layout, and it only takes a few buttons. You would go up to Widget, and you would click on Timer, and that would create this a timer button. And what I did is I checked the Start, Pause, and Stop fields, and I put a link in there, Start Timer, Pause Timer, Stop Timer, and that's going to give me a quick access to allow me to start, pause, and stop the timer. And then I need to come through and I need to map it. And then the last thing I needed to do was on completion, put in a command that says show message, and that message is game over. So let's go ahead and look at how we did that. So let's go up to the timer, and then you can see where we checked the start, pause, and stop. And here it's start timer, pause timer, and reset timer. And we're not going to use any keyboard shortcuts for this, so we'll just go ahead and get rid of that. You'll scroll down and you'll see where the title mapping is. And the name of this title is OMS Clock, or One Man Stream Clock. And there are a couple different pieces of information in this clock. There's message, text, clock, and then the logo. And we're actually mapping it to the clock portion. And under format, you can actually do hours, hours, minutes, minutes, seconds, seconds. But for most sporting events, it's a pretty short time, 30 minutes, 12 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. So I just use the minute and then seconds. And then this last piece here, it says on completion, game over. So you can actually operate it from here. You can start it here. And you can see over here that it is counting down, and you can stop it or pause it, and then you can reset it. Now, a lot of sporting events, you're going to count down, so you click this reverse box here. If you're doing something like soccer where they're counting up, you would not click this box, and then when you click start, you'll notice it's counting up instead of counting down. But for our demonstration today, we're going to click this box so it's going to count down in reverse. So when we start it, it goes 9, 8, 7. It's going to count down to 0. We can pause it, and then we can also stop it. What I have this set up to do is when we stop it, it's going to reset it. And I did make some buttons over here to operate it. And this is normally the way that I do it. Sometimes it's a little tedious hitting these small buttons over here. So I normally make me some larger buttons to make it easier on myself. So let's go and look behind the scenes at what's going on here. I put an execute link, and the execute link is a start timer. So when I click on this button, it's actually running a little piece of script, and that piece of script is called start timer, and it's going to start the timer. Well, where did the start timer come from? It came from over here on our timer. Click I ticked the start box here, and I typed in start timer. So we'll go on next to the pause button. Click on that. Execute link, pause timer. And then to reset it, same thing, execute link, the script is reset timer. And this button right here is the one that we did the automation with. In previous episodes, I showed you how to set visible on and set visible off, and that's all we're doing today with this game over button. So let's take a look at the script on that. So I put in here, the link is going to be game over, and I just check the tick box here for execute. So whenever we type in game over or execute link command and type in game over, it's going to run this set of scripts that's below us here. So the first one is going to be set visible off, and for the input, it's the OMS clock. And then on the index, let's see what we got here. We'll click on this. The three pieces of information are message, clock, and then the logo. And you can see it's number one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn the clock off. And then the next thing we're going to do is set X visible on. And we'll see what index 0 is. Index 0 is the message. So it's going to turn the clock off and it's going to bring the message on. And then we're going to run the timer function. The timer function is going to run for 5 seconds. And then we're going to bring index 0, which is the message. We're going to turn that off. And you have to make sure right here on this type that it's either text or image. And you have to have that set right. If you're trying to turn an image off and on, it needs to be set to image. If you're trying to turn text off and on, it needs to be set to text. So all these that we're using today are set to text. And then the last part, we're going to turn back on the clock readout so that it'll be ready to go the next time we start the clock. So it's very simple. I'll show you how we did this one more time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click the start button, and the countdown begins. 3, 2, 1, and then game over. And then that's going to stay for 5 seconds, and then it's going to bring the clock back in. The region widget is more cosmetic than functional, but it does help us to make our layouts a little more pleasing to look at. And I'll go ahead and show you what I mean here. Let's go ahead up to the widget, and we're going to click on region. And then we're just going to call this test region. And let's make it a nice bright orange so we can see it. And it's sizable in both length and width. And let's just go ahead and position it right here. So this allows us to do something pretty neat that you can't really do without it. It actually allows you, to move things in a group. So let's go ahead and create some buttons. We're just going to go up here and create one. Button 1. Okay, so here's the button that we created. Click OK, and we're going to duplicate it a few times. I haven't spoken to this point, but I'll show you what I did right there. If you have several buttons that you're going to make that are going to be very similar in functionality, you can use this duplicate widget. So I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to move it out of the way, maybe. Then I'm going to duplicate it again, and I'm going to move it out of the way. Okay, let's go ahead and put the buttons we just made in our new test region. All right, and this is where the cool part comes in. If you click up here on sticky and you click it, it's going to turn yellow, and then you can move this whole region, this whole area, wherever you want to. If you don't click the sticky, you'll be moving the region, but you won't be moving the buttons. This is probably the neatest feature of this particular widget, is the fact that you can move things in groups. Okay, so now I'm just going to stop here for a moment, and I'm going to bring up another layout that I did earlier. And this is what I mean by being able to move things by region. If I decide that I don't want my replay functions to be here, I can just move them over here all at one time. Notice that the sticky is clicked, and you know that it's clicked when it's turned yellow. And I can bring this back here if I'd like to. Here's my overlay channels. I can do the same thing. So it's just an easy way of changing the appearance of your production layout. If you're not using the region widget, it's not possible to move these things in groups, and it does make it much easier, and it is a little bit more pleasing to look at when you have your regions with different colors. The volume widget, and let's go ahead and just go up to the menu bar and click widget, and you can see all the ones that we've covered so far. We've covered the button, label, region, score, text field, timer, and now we're going to focus on the volume widget. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the volume widget, and that brings up this box right here, and you can see that it does say volume widget. Well, what can you do with the volume widget? Well, there's several things that you can do. You can actually set it up as a meter so that you can view any of the different audio inputs that you might have in your vMix production. You can set it for master, or if you hit the drop down menu, you can set it for any of the buses that you have active within your vMix. Another thing that you can do is you can set it for a specific input, and by clicking on input, then you would go to anything that you have incorporated with your vMix setup, and any audio files that you might have you could include. So we're going to include this one right here. And it allows you to do a couple things. You can either set the audio readout, you can either set it horizontally or you can set it vertically. And then you can also show the slider and also show the meter. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one. And I'm going to go ahead and show you this one right here. This one I set up as the master. And how I did that is I just I just went to the menu bar, clicked on volume widget, and then I came down here and under target, I hit the drop down menu and chose master. And then what I did is I set it vertically, and I chose to show the slider and the meters. So when music's playing or sound's coming through the master, you're going to see it in this meter right here. And then you're going to have a slider so that you can actually adjust that sound level within your vMix production. The other way that I'm using it in this tutorial today as an audio clip. And so this is what the audio clip looks like. Scroll down to the bottom. What I did is I selected under target, I selected input. I brought in the WAV file that I already had incorporated with my vMix production. I set the style to horizontal, and I elected to show the meter and the slider. So this is what it's going to look like when I click the play button. You can see the audio playing out right here, and you should be able to hear it as well. And then I'm just going to go ahead and stop it. Well, I need to tell you something. Within vMix, there is no stop command. Within vMix, there's three things you can do with audio. You can play it, you can pause it, and you can restart it. But there isn't really a command for stop. Well, I've got a button here that I created. And what this command does, essentially it just stops your audio, but it's doing it with two commands. The first command will pause it, and then the second command will restart it. And notice that I chose the WAV file input that I alluded to earlier. And so these two commands here, pause and restart, are actually acting just like a stop button. So I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to stop it. And the advantage of this is if you were just pausing it, when you hit play again, it's going to pick up where you had paused it, and it's not going to start back at the beginning of that audio clip. So I'll show you how that goes. I'm going to hit click play, and let me show you behind the scenes of the play button. It's very simple. All I did is under command I chose play, and then under input I chose our WAV file. And let's see what's going on with the pause button. So let's bring it up here. And what I'm doing is I'm using under the command line, I'm using pause, and under the input we're using the WAV file that I showed you earlier. So you click play, and you click pause, and it pauses it. But if you click play again, it's going to pick up where you left off and not at the beginning of the clip. All right, so if you're using this in some type of a production, you probably want to have a way of fading that music. So if you have an audio file that you're using as bump music, you want to have some way of fading that music in and out. So I'm going to show you how that works. And under this fade button, the command that we're using is set volume fade. The input is the same input we've been using, and there's two parameters that you have to set. One's the volume level, and for my particular use here, I want the volume to fade all the way down to 0, and I want that interval to be 50 milliseconds or 5 seconds. So let's see what that sounds like. So we're going to play it, and then we're going to fade it, and you can see the meter and the slider start going down, and it should go all the way down to 0, which it does. So on this button right here, the one that we just showed you that says fade, all it does is fade the volume and nothing else. So let's go to the second button right here, the fade and restart. So we have the same first command line, we have the same command, set volume fade, with the same parameters. And then what I'm doing is I am coming in with a timer for 6 milliseconds, and I'll explain to you in just a moment why I'm doing that. And then the third command is the pause command and the restart command, and that's the same thing that we did here with the stop. So basically what we're doing is we're incorporating the first fade button and the stop. The reason I have this timer function in here is the way vMix UTC works is it's going to come to this first command, the set volume fade, and that's going to be over 5 seconds. And then so what it's going to be doing is it's going to be fading the volume for 5 seconds. It's going to fade it down to 0. But while it's doing that 5-second fade, it's going to go to the very next thing, which would be pause. So what would happen is it would start the fade and then it would stop it. So that's not what we're wanting to do. So the way that we're able to work around that is by putting a timer in here. So I have the timer set for just a little bit longer than what the fade is, and what this does is it allows the fade to go all the way to 0 before it goes to the next command, which is pause. So that third command line there is pause, so it's going to pause it, and then it's going to restart it, so that clip is going to be ready to go the next time that we need to use it. So let's see what that looks like. So what I'm going to have to do is set the audio level back. So I'm going to set it back to about 60%. Then I'm going to hit play. And now let's hit this fade restart button. And you can see that it's starting to fade. The volume's going down. Now it's at 0. But what's going on in the background is it's going to allow me to start that clip back at the very beginning the next time that I need to use it. So let's try it and see if that works. I'm going to reset the volume. Okay, so now we're going to hit play and see if it starts back at the beginning of that clip. And it does. So we're just going to go ahead and stop it. Now, when I have a production, I don't use this fade button and I don't use this fade restart. I'm just showing you the steps that's needed, the steps that are needed in order to get to the point that we want. And the point that we want is we want the music to fade. We want the clip to restart so that it's ready to go the next time we use it. But we also want the volume to reset so that we don't have to manually set it. So with this button right here, what I'm able to do is I'm able to do the fade, And then at the end of the fade, it's going to restart the clip. So the clip's going to be ready to go the next time we need to use it, but it's also going to reset the volume. So let's see how that works. So the first command is just like all the other buttons that we created. It's the set volume fade with the same input. We're going to set the volume to go all the way down to 0, and we're going to fade it over the 5 seconds. We're going to bring that timer in for 6 seconds so it doesn't immediately go to the third command, which is pause, and then the fourth command, which is restart. And then we're going to go to another timer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to reset the volume. We want to make sure everything has been completed within this piece of script before we reset the volume. If not, some of the issues I've had in the past is the audio will start to fade, and then boom, it'll go back to what the original audio level was before it faded all the way down to 0. So that's why I put this timer in here for 5 seconds. So let's look at it once again. Again, it's set volume fade. Volume's going to go down to 0 over 5 seconds. Then we're going to bring this timer in for 6 seconds so that the first command doesn't immediately go to pause and pause our audio. And then we're going to, after using the pause, then we're going to use the restart, and that's going to have our clip ready to go for the next time we want it. And then we're going to use that timer for 5 seconds so that everything gets completed before we go back and reset our volume. And we're going to reset our volume to a level of 60. So let's see how that works. We're going to go ahead and click OK. We're going to start the music. You can see the music's playing up here under demo sound. And then we're going to hit this button right here. You can see the slider going down, the music is going down. It should go down to 0, and then it should wait that 5-second period, and then it resets the volume, and that's exactly what it did. So if we hit it again, starts at the beginning of the clip. We hit this button again, it starts to fade, slider goes down to 0, and then it's going to wait a few more seconds before it resets that volume level to 60. If you like this tutorial series, please give me a thumbs up and a like, and make sure that you do subscribe so that you'll be alerted when new videos are posted. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. As always, thank you very much.